I stood at the top of our marble staircase, watching my son humiliate a child half his size. "What's wrong, Leo? Can't afford real shoes?" Ethan's voice echoed through our foyer, cruel and casual. He held Leo's worn sneaker above his head, dangling it like a trophy while three of his prep school friends laughed. "These look like they came from a dumpster." Leo stood there in his socks, his face burning red, eyes fixed on the floor. He was 17, small for his age, with gentle features that made him look even younger. His mother, Maria, our housekeeper of 12 years, had just stepped out to get cleaning supplies. She had no idea what was happening to her son. "Ethan," my voice cut through the laughter like glass, "give him back his shoe. Now." My son turned to me and I saw something in his eyes that made my blood run cold. Not shame. Not even embarrassment, just annoyance that I'd interrupted his entertainment. "We're just playing around, Mom." "Right, Leo." Leo said nothing. He couldn't even look at me. Ethan tossed the shoe carelessly toward Leo's feet and brushed past me, his friends trailing behind him like remoras following a shark. I heard them laughing all the way up to his room, their voices fading behind his $1,000 soundproof door. I helped Leo gather his things, my hands shaking. When Maria returned, I said nothing. What could I say? Your son is being tortured by mine. The child you're raising with such love and care is the target of the monster I've created. That night, I couldn't sleep. Daniel found me at 2 a.m, sitting in our library with a glass of untouched wine. "I saw him today," I said quietly. "Really saw him. And I don't recognize him anymore." Daniel sat beside me, his face drawn. At 52, my husband still had the sharp features that had attracted me 30 years ago, but tonight he looked exhausted. The incident with Leo. It's not just Leo. It's everything. The way he treats waiters, the way he talks about his professors, the way he throws money at problems instead of solving them. He's cruel, Daniel. When did he become cruel? When we made it too easy for him to be. I looked at my husband. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we gave him everything, Victoria. Everything except consequences. We talked until dawn. We'd given Ethan private tutors when he failed classes instead of making him study. We'd bought him a Porsche when he crashed his BMW instead of making him work for a replacement. We'd paid his way out of every problem, smoothed every rough edge, removed every obstacle. We'd built him a life without friction, and friction is what shapes character." "We need to teach him what real life feels like," Daniel said finally, "before it's too late." "How? He's 19, he doesn't listen to us." Daniel's eyes met mine and I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Determination. "Then we don't tell him, we show him." The plan took 3 weeks to arrange. Daniel contacted his business partners, our financial advisor, our attorney. I reached out to friends in our social circle explaining just enough. Everyone had to believe the story we were about to tell. On a Tuesday morning in October, I knocked on Ethan's bedroom door. "Go away, Mom. I'm sleeping." "Ethan, we need to talk. Now." Something in my voice made him open the door. He stood there in expensive pajamas, his hair perfectly styled even first thing in the morning. Everything about him screamed privilege. "What?" "Your father and I need to speak with you. Downstairs. 5 minutes." Daniel and I waited in the living room, sitting on the couch where we'd told Ethan about Santa Claus, about his grandmother's death, about every important thing in his life. This would be the most important conversation yet. Ethan slouched in 15 minutes later, deliberately late. "What's so urgent?" "Sit down," Daniel said. Something in his father's tone made Ethan obey. He dropped into the leather armchair across from us, his phone still in his hand. "Put the phone away," I said. "This is serious." He sighed dramatically but complied. "Fine. What?" Daniel leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "Son, there's no easy way to say this. I made some investments over the past year. Bad investments. Very bad." Ethan's expression didn't change. "So? Just make different ones." "It doesn't work that way. I lost everything, Ethan. The company, our savings, our investments, We're bankrupt. Now Ethan sat up. What are you talking about? That's not possible. I'm talking about this house being sold to pay our debts. I'm talking about having to move to a rental apartment. I'm talking about you needing to transfer to state school because we can't afford your tuition anymore. I watched the colour drain from my son's face. You're kidding. I'm not. Daniel's voice was flat, emotionless. He'd practiced this. We both had. We have 2 months before the foreclosure. We've already found a place in Riverside. 2 bedrooms. You'll have to share with your mother and me taking shifts on the couch. Riverside, Ethan's voice cracked. That's like the worst part of the city, where all the poor people live. The casual cruelty of that statement nearly broke my resolve, but I forced myself to stay in character. That's where people like us live now, I said softly. People without money. This is insane. What about my car, my friends, my life? Your car is being repossessed. Your friends will have to understand, and your life is about to change dramatically. Ethan stood up, his hands shaking. No. No way. I'll just stay with Brandon's family or Chase's. They have room. Daniel shook his head. You're our son. You're staying with us. We'll get through this together. Get through this. Dad, you destroyed everything. How could you be so stupid? I saw Daniel flinch, though he hid it well. I made mistakes. Now we all pay for them. Ethan stormed out, slamming every door between the living room and his bedroom. I heard things breaking upstairs, followed by the sound of him yelling into his phone, calling his friends, telling them the news. That's when the second phase of our plan began. Brandon's mother called back within an hour. She was so sorry, but they didn't have room for a long-term guest. Chase's father said the same thing, his voice uncomfortably formal. One by one, Ethan's friends found reasons why he couldn't stay with them. Not because they actually didn't have room, but because we'd asked them to say no, because we needed Ethan to feel what rejection felt like. The move happened fast. We'd actually rented a modest apartment in Riverside months earlier, slowly furnishing it with second-hand furniture and basic appliances. When the moving truck arrived, I watched Ethan's face as they loaded his gaming system, his designer clothes, his entire world into cardboard boxes. Where's the rest of the truck? He asked. This is it, Daniel said. We can only afford the basics now. What about my Gucci jackets, my sneaker collection? Sold to help pay the debts. Ethan looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. Mum, you can't let him do this. I met his eyes. I can't stop it, honey. It's already done. The apartment was 1,000 square miles from our mansion. Ethan had to sleep on a used futon in what was generously called the second bedroom, but was really a storage closet with a window. The walls were thin enough to hear our neighbours arguing. The kitchen was smaller than his old walk-in closet. This is where we're living. Ethan stood in the doorway, refusing to enter. This is like a homeless shelter. This is what we can afford, I said firmly, and you'll learn to appreciate it. Ethan lasted 2 days before trying to go back to his old life. He showed up at Brandon's house for their usual Friday night party. Brandon's mother called me an hour later. He's been turned away, she said quietly. The boys told him he wasn't welcome anymore, just like you asked. I thanked her and hung up, my heart breaking even as I knew this was necessary. Ethan came home at midnight, his eyes red. They wouldn't let me in. They said I didn't belong there anymore. They said poor people made them uncomfortable. Now you know how Leo felt, I said quietly. He stared at me. What? When you mocked him for his clothes, his shoes, his life. Now you know how it feels to be judged for having less. That's completely different. Is it? Ethan turned and walked into his tiny room, closing the door. I heard him crying through the thin walls. The next morning, Daniel sat Ethan down at our second-hand kitchen table. You're enrolling at Riverside Community College tomorrow. Classes start next week, and you're getting a job. A job doing what? Whatever you can find. We need help with rent and food. I don't know how to get a job. Then you'll learn. Welcome to real life, son. I'd never seen Ethan frightened before. Not really. But watching him fill out job applications at fast food restaurants, Watching him stumble through interviews with managers who didn't care about his prep school education, watching him come home exhausted from his first shift at a burger joint, I saw real fear in his eyes. He lasted 3 days before quitting. "I'm not working there. Those people are idiots and customers treat me like garbage." Daniel didn't yell. He just put down his newspaper and looked at Ethan. "Then you don't eat. Food costs money. No work means no money, means no food. You can't do that. I'm your son. You're a 19-year-old adult who needs to contribute to this household. Those are the rules now." Ethan tried to call his bluff. He stayed in his room for a day and a half before hunger drove him out. Daniel and I had hidden any food he might scavenge. When he emerged, pale and shaking, I had to fight every maternal instinct screaming at me to feed my child. "Ready to work?" Daniel asked calmly. Ethan nodded, his pride finally broken. He got a job at a grocery store, stocking shelves on the night shift. The work was physically hard, the hours were brutal, and the pay was minimum wage. He came home at dawn, his hands raw, his feet aching, his spirit crushed. "I can't do this," he told me one morning, tears streaming down his face. "I can't live like this." I wanted to hold him. I wanted to tell him it was all fake, that his real life was waiting for him. But instead I said, "Yes, you can. You just don't want to. There's a difference." That's when Leo entered the picture again. Maria still worked for us, though now she came to our real house to clean once a week, paid in cash from our hidden accounts. But she didn't know about our deception. As far as she knew, we really had lost everything. She'd been incredibly kind about it, even offering to work for reduced pay. Leo was attending Riverside Community College too. He was studying computer programming, working part-time at the college library, and helping his mother whenever he could. He was everything Ethan wasn't: humble, hard-working, grateful for what he had. They ran into each other in the hallway during Ethan's first week. I heard about it from Maria, who heard about it from Leo. Ethan had walked past without saying anything, his eyes down, his shoulders hunched. Leo had stopped, watched him go, and then quietly said hello. Ethan had ignored him. But Leo didn't give up. The next day, when Ethan was struggling to understand his math homework in the library, Leo sat down across from him. "Need help with that?" Ethan looked up, his face flushing. "I'm fine. You've been staring at that same problem for 20 minutes. I took that class last semester. I can explain it. Why would you help me?" The words came out bitter, angry. "After everything I did to you?" Leo was quiet for a moment. "Because that's what people do. They help each other." Over the next few weeks, Leo tutored Ethan. He taught him math, showed him how to budget his tiny paycheck, explained how to meal prep cheap food to make his money stretch. He never mentioned the shoe incident, never brought up the humiliation. He just helped, patiently and kindly, like it had never happened. I watched this transformation from a distance. Daniel and I would drive past the college sometimes, park across the street, and watch our son sit in the library with Leo, working through problems together. We saw Ethan start to smile again, not the cruel smile of before, but something softer, something real. 3 months into our deception, Ethan came home from a late shift and found me still awake, reading a library book since we'd sold all our books. "Mum, can I talk to you?" "Of course, honey." He sat down, his grocery store uniform still smelling like produce and disinfectant. "I think I'm going crazy." "Why?" "Because I'm actually starting to like my life." "How messed up is that?" I closed my book. "Tell me about it." Today, this old lady came through my checkout line. She was counting out change really carefully, trying to make sure she had enough for her groceries. My old self would have been annoyed, thinking she was wasting my time. But today I just helped her count. And when she came up short, I paid the difference. It was only $3, but she almost cried. My throat tightened. "That was kind of you." And then I felt good, like really good. Better than I ever felt buying stuff or partying or any of that old crap. He looked at me confused. "Why does being nice to people feel so good?" "Because that's what we're meant to do, Ethan." help each other, care about each other. You're finally learning what matters. Leo said something similar. He said the best days are when you make someone else's day better. Ethan laughed bitterly. I used to make people's days worse, on purpose. I was such an asshole, Mum. You were, I agreed, but you're not anymore. He was quiet for a long time. I need to apologize to Leo. Really apologize. Not just for the shoe thing, but for everything. For being who I was. Then do it. The next day, Ethan asked Leo to get coffee after their study session. I heard about it later from Leo, who told his mother, who told me. They sat in a cheap diner drinking watery coffee, and Ethan laid out everything. Every cruel word, every petty humiliation, every time he'd used his privilege like a weapon. I don't expect you to forgive me, Ethan said. I don't even know if I forgive myself, but I need you to know I'm sorry. And I need you to know I'm trying to be better. Leo had looked at him for a long moment. I forgave you a long time ago. I was just waiting for you to forgive yourself. That night, Ethan came home and cried in my arms like he hadn't since he was a little boy. He cried for who he'd been, for the hurt he'd caused, for the time he'd wasted being someone awful. I'm proud of you, I whispered. So proud. 6 months into our experiment, Ethan was thriving. He'd made friends at work, real friends who liked him for who he was, not what he had. He was pulling straight A's at community college. He'd been promoted to assistant manager at the grocery store. And most importantly, he'd started volunteering at a youth centre, tutoring kids who couldn't afford private education. It's funny, he told Daniel one night over our simple dinner of pasta and sauce. I have less money than I've ever had, and I'm happier than I've ever been. How does that make sense? Daniel smiled. Because you finally understand the difference between the price of something and the value of something. Deep, Dad. I'm serious. Price is what you pay. Value is what you get. You spent years paying high prices for things with no value. Now you're getting incredible value for very little price. Ethan thought about that. Leo said something similar. He said rich people know the price of everything and the value of nothing. I nearly choked on my wine. Oscar Wilde. Leo was quoting Oscar Wilde. This boy we'd almost dismissed, this child Ethan had tormented, was wise beyond his years. 1 year after we'd moved to Riverside, Daniel and I sat down with our attorney and our financial advisor. It was time. Are you sure? Our attorney asked. He's doing so well. Why risk it? Because he deserves the truth, I said, and because we've put him through enough. We arranged a family meeting for Sunday afternoon. Ethan showed up still wearing his work uniform, apologizing for being late. His shift had run over because a co-worker called in sick and he'd volunteered to cover. Sit down, son, Daniel said. We need to talk to you. Ethan's face fell. Is it bad? Did something else happen? Because I can pick up more shifts, I can... Ethan, just sit. He sat, his hands gripping his knees. I could see him bracing for more bad news, more loss. My heart broke knowing what we'd put him through. Your mother and I haven't been completely honest with you, Daniel began. Ethan's eyes widened. What do you mean? I mean we're not bankrupt. We never were. The silence that followed was absolute. Ethan stared at us, his mouth opening and closing, no sound coming out. The investments, the bankruptcy, the foreclosure, all of it was staged, I said softly. We still own the house. Your college fund still exists. Your car is in storage. Everything you thought you lost is still there. Ethan stood up slowly, his face cycling through confusion, understanding, and then rage. You lied to me. For a year, you lied to me. Yes, Daniel said simply. Why? Why would you do that to me? I stood up too, facing my son. Because you were cruel. Because you were entitled. Because you hurt people for fun and thought money could solve everything. Because you were becoming someone we didn't recognize and we needed to save you from yourself. So you decided to torture me instead, to humiliate me? To make me live in poverty while you what? Watched and laughed? We did it because we love you, Daniel said, his voice breaking for the first time. Because we saw you destroying your own life and everyone around you, and we couldn't just stand by and watch. We had to do something. Ethan's hands were shaking. So everything, the apartment, the job, Leo, all of it was just some sick experiment? Leo didn't know, I said quickly. Neither did Maria, neither did your friends. This was just us, trying to teach you what you needed to learn. And what was that exactly? That my parents are liars? That I can't trust anyone? That you're capable of being a good person, I said, tears streaming down my face. That kindness matters more than money. That real relationships are built on respect, not power. That you can be so much more than what you were. Ethan looked at both of us, his eyes wet. I hate you. I know, Daniel said quietly. I hate you for lying, for manipulating me, for making me think I'd lost everything. I know. But I also know you're right, Ethan's voice broke. I was a terrible person. I hurt people. I hurt Leo. I hurt you. I hurt everyone around me because I thought I could. Because I thought money meant I could do whatever I wanted without consequences. He sat back down, his head in his hands. The person I was a year ago, I don't even recognize him. He's like a stranger I'm ashamed of. I knelt beside him, taking his hands. You're not that person anymore. You changed. You grew. You learned. Because you forced me to. We gave you the opportunity, Daniel corrected, but you did the work. You humbled yourself. You learned to value people over possessions. You became someone worth knowing. That was all you, son. Ethan was quiet for a long time. So, what happens now? Do I go back to the mansion? Back to prep school? Back to being rich? That's up to you, I said. Everything we took is still yours. The house, the money, the car, all of it. But you get to decide what kind of life you want to live. And if I want to stay in Riverside? Daniel and I exchanged glances. We hadn't expected that. Why would you want to do that? Daniel asked. Because my friends are there. My job is there. The kids I tutor are there. And Leo is there. Ethan looked up, his eyes clear. That life in the mansion? It wasn't real. It was just expensive emptiness. This life, the one you forced me into, it's real, and I don't want to give it up. I felt something shift in my chest. Pride, relief, joy. Then you don't have to. But I do want to apologize, Ethan continued, to everyone, to Leo especially. He was kind to me when I didn't deserve it. He taught me everything worth knowing. And he did it all not knowing you were watching, not knowing this was some test. He was just good because that's who he is. He's remarkable, I agreed. He's better than I ever was. Ethan stood up, wiping his eyes. I need to tell him the truth. He deserves that. Are you sure? Daniel asked. He might be angry. He should be. I would be. But I can't keep lying to him. Not when he's been so honest with me. The next day, Ethan told Leo everything. They sat in that same cheap diner and Ethan laid out the whole deception. I wasn't there, but Leo told his mother, who told me. He said Leo had been quiet for a long time. So you were rich the whole time? Yes. And the apartment, the job, all of it was fake? Not fake. It was real for me. I really worked those shifts. I really struggled with the math. I really learned what you taught me. The only thing that was fake was the circumstances that put me there. Leo had stirred his coffee, thinking, your parents must love you a lot. That's what you took from this. Not that they're insane. They're definitely insane. But they saw you hurting people and they stopped it. They could have just cut you off, kicked you out for real. Instead, they stayed with you, lived in that crappy apartment with you, suffered with you. That's love. You're not mad. I'm not happy you lied. But I get it. And honestly, I like who you've become. I don't know if I would have liked who you were before. Ethan had started crying again. I definitely wouldn't have. They'd sat there for hours, talking through everything. By the end, Leo had made Ethan promise 2 things. to keep tutoring the kids at the youth centre and to never mock anyone for having less ever again. "Deal," Ethan had said, "but I want to add one more promise." "What?" "To never forget what it feels like to be on the other side." 3 years later, Ethan graduated from Riverside Community College with a 4.0 GPA. He'd transferred to a 4-year university on a scholarship, studying social work. He still lived in Riverside, though in a nicer apartment he paid for with his income from managing the grocery store. Leo was his roommate. They'd become inseparable, two young men who understood the value of friendship built on respect and mutual experience. At Ethan's graduation, I watched him walk across the stage to accept his degree. Daniel squeezed my hand. "We did the right thing," he whispered. "I know." After the ceremony, Ethan found us in the crowd. He'd brought Leo, of course, and Maria, who'd been invited as family, because that's what they were now. Family. "Mom, Dad, I want you to know something," Ethan said, his arm around Leo's shoulders. "What you did, lying to me, forcing me into that year of poverty, it was crazy, manipulative, possibly emotionally damaging." I felt my stomach drop. "Ethan, but it saved my life," he smiled, and it was that new smile, the real one. I was a monster, a rich, entitled, cruel monster, and you stopped me from becoming something even worse. You gave me the chance to become someone I could actually be proud of. "You did that yourself," Daniel said. "No, you gave me the opportunity. I just took it, and I want you to know I forgive you. More than that, I thank you." Leo stepped forward. "I want to thank you too, for raising a son who is brave enough to change, for caring enough to do something extreme, and for trusting me to be part of his transformation." Maria was crying, her hand over her mouth. "I still don't understand what's happening, but I love you all." We laughed, all of us standing there in the sunshine, a year of deception, of manipulation, of carefully orchestrated lessons. And, in the end, it had worked. Later that night, after the celebration dinner, Ethan asked to speak with me alone. We walked through Riverside, past the grocery store where he still worked weekends, past the library where Leo had first offered to help, past the youth centre where Ethan now volunteered 3 nights a week. "Do you remember that day with the shoe?" he asked. "When I made fun of Leo?" "I'll never forget it. I've replayed it 1,000 times in my head. The look on his face, the sound of my friends laughing, the way you looked at me." He stopped walking. "That moment, that's when you decided, isn't it? That's when you knew you had to do something." That was the breaking point, I admitted, but there were so many moments before it. We'd been watching you become someone we didn't recognize for years. That was just the moment we couldn't ignore it anymore. "I'm glad you didn't. Ignore it, I mean." He looked at me, his eyes so much older than they'd been 3 years ago. "I would have destroyed my own life. I would have hurt so many people. I would have ended up alone and miserable with a bunch of money and nothing real. But you didn't. Because you stopped me." He hugged me suddenly. Fiercely. "Thank you for loving me enough to break me down and help me rebuild myself better." I held my son, this young man who'd learned the hardest lessons through the strangest means, and I felt complete. Not because our plan had worked, but because he'd chosen to let it work. He'd chosen to change. He'd chosen to become someone worth knowing. "You know what the best part is?" Ethan said, pulling back. "I don't miss any of it. The mansion, the money, the parties, none of it. This life, the one I built myself, is so much better. You can have both, you know. Your trust fund is still there." "I know, but I don't need it. Not yet. Maybe someday I'll use it to do something good, start a non-profit or something. But right now, I just want to keep living real life. The life where things matter because I earned them, not because I bought them." We walked back to his apartment in comfortable silence. Leo was waiting on the steps, 2 cheap beers in hand. He waved when he saw us, that gentle smile on his face that had weathered so much cruelty and responded with only kindness. "Your mother's calling," Leo said to Ethan. "Something about Sunday dinner?" Tell her we'll be there, both of us. Leo looked surprised. Both? Yeah, man. You're family now. You've earned your seat at the table. I watched them walk inside, two young men who'd travelled such different paths to the same destination. One born into poverty, fighting his way up. One born into privilege, needing to fall down. Both ending up in the same place with the same values, building the same kind of life. Daniel found me 20 minutes later, still standing on the sidewalk. You okay? I'm perfect. I leaned into him. He's going to be okay. Better than okay, he's going to be remarkable. We drove home to our mansion, the one we'd never really left, the one that now felt almost empty compared to the fullness of Ethan's tiny apartment. We had everything money could buy and nothing it couldn't. Our son had the opposite and he was richer for it. The next Sunday we had dinner at our house. Ethan and Leo showed up together, both of them looking slightly uncomfortable in the familiar opulence. Maria came too, no longer as our housekeeper but as our guest. We sat around the dining room table where we'd shared countless meals, but this one felt different, real. I have an announcement, Ethan said, setting down his fork. Leo and I are starting something, a program for at-risk kids, teaching them financial literacy, helping them apply for scholarships, tutoring them for free. That's wonderful, I said. And we'd like your help, not your money, he added quickly. Your time, your knowledge, your network. We want to build something that actually helps people. Daniel and I looked at each other. This was our son, the one we'd raised and nearly lost and reclaimed and watched transform. This was him using his privilege for good, understanding that wealth wasn't about what you had, but what you did with it. We're in, Daniel said. Whatever you need. Ethan smiled. That real smile that made everything we'd done worth it. Thank you. For everything. For raising me, for challenging me, for never giving up on me, even when I'd given up on myself. Leo raised his cheap beer. To second chances. To second chances, we all echoed. As the evening wound down and I watched my son help Maria clear the dishes, laughing with Leo about some inside joke, I felt Daniel's hand find mine. No regrets? He asked quietly. Not a single one. Because we'd given Ethan everything. Privilege, education, opportunity, and then we'd taken it all away. And in that taking, in that manufactured fall from grace, we'd given him the only thing that truly mattered. We'd given him the chance to find himself. And he'd taken it. Thank you, my loves, for watching until the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the newest videos.